Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Problem With, a series of increasingly mediocre popularity that I continue to make anyway. So on today's episode, I'm sure I'm going to annoy everybody. I'm going to annoy every single person, but I hope that you all make it to the end of this video before leaving comments or leaving hate or thing like that, because I assure you that any complaints you have, anything you have where you're going to say, you're wrong, what about this, what about this, I'm sure I will probably address every single thing there, regardless of how long this video is. So this video is going to be the problem with the bot lane meta. What is the problem with the bot lane meta? How can every single person hate bot lane and the meta? How can bot lane be overpowered and yet feel no fun to play? How can everyone hate bot lane? Every single role, every single class hates bot lane. And despite that, it continuously gets buffed. How can that be true? So what is the problem with the bot lane meta? To begin with, we're going to go through this one right here. Quick gameplay thoughts 13.3. This is a dev post that Riot made about 8 days ago. And I thought by starting here and going over this, the way I read through this dev post, to me, it really read in one way that, like when I read through it, it was pretty obvious what the problem was. And I was like looking over my shoulder, like, does no one else understand? Like, this is obvious what's happening here. But I've learned to not just assume that everyone reads things the same way that I read them, because I've been playing this game for like 13 years, right? So like, if someone says, oh, we've never had to nerf Kassadin for his team fighting, and I'm sitting here like, oh yeah, you did. Back in Season 5, you actually nerfed the slow duration on his E and said it was because he was too good at team fighting. And someone's like, how do you even remember that? And I'm like, I don't know, I just do, right? So a lot of people lack the things I have, but let's read through this. We're going to go through uncertainty in the meta. Before going into any specific topic, I want to note there have been a lot of changes in the last several patches dating back to preseason. That means that things are changing pretty fast in the metagame. It's always risky to discuss future priorities that they're subject to change. New information may come to light, the needs of players can shift, etc. That's particularly true after this change while things are still settling. With that said, here are a few things we're currently looking at. So they're saying that they've made a bunch of changes and they're kind of like giving themselves a get out of jail free card. Like, oh, maybe we're wrong because we made changes. But like the problem is they've now made 1, 2, and we're going to 3 patches of changes that are definitively helping out the bot lane meta. We are going consistently into this freak vision for bot lane. And so you can't say, oh, we might be wrong here, and then for a month and a half continuously make decisions, including the next patch, and continuously make decisions that push towards a bot lane meta. The meta in bot lane is in a weird state, with a number of related problems we're trying to solve. First, the issue is they don't actually talk about these problems, and they don't really talk about solving them in a reasonable way. First, we're looking at enchanters and ADC supports and Heimerdinger being too dominant in pro play. In patch 13.3, we're looking to add some power to melee support picks. So they did that patch, and then in patch 13.4, they're adding even more power to melee picks. So they're staying this course, just to be clear. We're also looking at some larger systemic changes, as we don't believe that this is an issue of just champion balance. So they don't think they can just buff or nerf champions. They believe they need to go into core issues with the game, which is true, actually. I will reveal what I think the problem with the bot lane meta is, but Riot is right so far in that, yes, this is a problem with the core game. The emerging meta of fast ganking bot lane in both high skill, solo queue, and pro play is on our radar is something that needs correcting. Yes, everyone ganks bot lane. Everyone level 3 ganks bot lane. Everyone does that. Mid tries to roam to bot lane. Top tries to roam to bot lane of very questionable effectiveness, but they do try to go to bot lane. Everyone tries to gank bot lane. Besides looking at the champions in the meta, we're also acting on Umbral Glaive and increasing ward availability a bit this patch to help laners protect themselves, and are looking to trim some power from the jungle. So they did nerf the jungle this patch, it did absolutely nothing. They did nerf Umbral Glaive, it did absolutely nothing. They did try to buff wards, it did absolutely nothing. And I can explain why it did absolutely nothing, but let's get through this. We'll be actively monitoring the situation. It's likely we'll need to do more to follow up over future patches. Yes, obviously, it's pretty obvious reading through this. They seem to not understand their own problem while reading through this. The good, jungle Q health is significantly improved in a way we think is likely to remain true even as we iterate. The bad, jungle influence on the game is currently too high, particularly in how it is expressed to fast ganking. I don't need to read through the rest of this. Let me explain this. The issue right now, let me explain this in the best terms possible. The issue right now, the meta has devolved into spam ganking bot lane. They buffed bot lane because bot laners didn't have enough influence on their own game. The problem is the reasons bot laners don't have enough influence on the game is bot laners win the game. The ADC is the best scaling role. That's true. You cannot deny that. The ADC is the best at level 1, which is also true for the most part. It obviously varies champion to champion, but the best class in the game at level 1 is the Marksman, the ranged Marksman. Overall, that is true. Overall, yes, the best late game class is the ranged Marksman. While there are some characters, potentially like Ziggs or Yasuo, who can challenge them at level 1 or 2, etc., none of them will ever outscale a ranged Marksman. And the issue here is when Riot pushed, recently they pushed the crit items to the second item that you can build. This means at 2 items in the game, the Marksman can completely take over the game. The response has been for everyone to gank bot lane. This has led to a situation of extreme unfun for everyone, as I explained earlier. Why is it extremely unfun for everyone? The Marksman is the most important character in the game, but he doesn't get to decide his own fate. The Marksman gets to be the best scaling champion. The Marksman gets to be the best into the late game, but the Marksman doesn't get to decide if he's fed the majority of the times. In lane, despite the Marksman being able to auto attack a lot, he has a second person. Now, overall, the better Marksman will climb, but the issue here is the support will impact the lane significantly. At level 1, generally speaking, the Marksmen are stronger than everyone else. At level 2 or 3, particularly at level 4, the Marksmen will start to fall off because they're more item dependent and get less level scaling, less ability scaling. They'll typically fall off to either mage supports or tank supports who can start to bully them. So the problem starts being that you put a Marksman in a support in bot lane because level 1 priority is extremely powerful. Beyond level 1, the support starts to take over. So lane starts to become more and more about the support and not about the Marksman. I know me personally, I have gotten auto-filled to Marksman, and most of the time I dodge it, but there's like one time a couple of years ago I didn't dodge it, and I watched a Nami support just straight up 1v2 the lane. I did my best, I helped, but I had very little idea on what I was doing. Particularly, I normally only play Marksman maybe at like a plat, maybe diamond level at best. So I rarely ever play the champion, so I did what I could, but I'm watching a Nami player just basically 1v2 the lane. The supports kind of do that. So at 1 item, you outscale the support. At 2 items, you're generally the strongest class in the game. But to get to 1 item, you need to get your support, you need to get your jungler, you need to get your mid laner. In other words, everyone is more important to the Marksman than the Marksman. So effectively, as a lot of people have noted, the game is currently becoming everyone ganks bot lane. Everyone ganks bot lane all the time to get the Marksman fed. Now, let's put this in a way that people can understand a bit better. Marksman players will always say, oh, but a Marksman against a Bruiser, let's imagine this is a 1v1, the Bruiser will defeat the Marksman. Pew pew, the Marksman dies, right? But let's imagine for a second, it's not just a 1v1. Let's imagine for a second you have a tank in front of you. Now, who wins? 2v1, obviously the Marksman wins. But you'll say, what if the Bruiser is an enchanter? In this situation, it goes about equal. The Marksman and their enchanter can beat, for example, the Bruiser enchanter, or the Marksman tank can beat the Bruiser thing. Yeah, it's like a 2v2, right? It can go about equal. I would say that this is still, in the early game, probably a bit Bruiser-sided. But once we start to fit a 3v3 or a teamfight situation, obviously, you can imagine here, front to back, who's more important in the front to back? The Bruiser or the Marksman? The Marksman. The Marksman and his ability to auto-attack and his ability to do things is the most important. So, what's my point with this? As the game goes on, as the game continues to go later and later and later into the game, the Marksman just starts to be more and more powerful. Now, how did we buff bot lane? All we did, well, first off, let's be clear here. We did buff Lord Dominic's Regards. We did that 100%. There's no way to argue about that. Lord Dominic's Guards got 5 damage. Essence Reaver got 10 damage. Bloodthirster was buffed as well. Overgrowth was buffed. Marksman as a whole were buffed. But as we can see right here, and this is becoming a more prevalent issue, moving Infinity Edge to the second item or moving Quick Blades to the second item has 100% buffed ADCs. ADCs dominating the game at 2 items has put a much shorter timer on the game. This means that in the past, what you could do is you could maybe play to top lane and you could try to win top lane and then snowball the entire map. But now, and we can see that Infinity Edge has a much higher win rate than Fire Cannon. So Caitlyn's second item used to be Fire Cannon, and now it's Infinity Edge. This has undeniably increased Caitlyn's win rate. And this is the same for basically across the board. We can see Navari Quick Blades has a higher win rate than Phantom Dancer on Kai'Sa. On Jhin, we can see Infinity Edge has a higher win rate than Fire Cannon. On Xayah, we can see Quick Blades has a higher win rate than Phantom Dancer. I chose the 5 most played ADCs. I skipped Ezreal because Ezreal. So 4 out of the 5 most played ADCs, their best second item is the crit item. Undeniably, ADCs were buffed. They can get their best items second. Okay? So what this has done is it's put a shorter timer on the game. Now, I'm not saying that top was like the best lane. It wasn't. It was still bot lane before this change, but we've made changes that have made ganking bot lane even more impactful. So the problem here is that Ride is finally taking notice. When jungle was automatically winning the top and jungle was automatically winning the mid, Ride sort of went, whatever. But now that jungle, and this is for, Riot is dumb like this. For some reason, now that the jungle is just laser focused on only chain ganking the bot forever and only the bot, Riot seems to be like, well, this is a problem. But this has been a problem for years and years and years. It's now everyone is just laser focused on getting the Marksman ahead and just chain ganking the Marksman. They're trying to give them more wards. They're trying to buff turret damage. They're trying to make them safer. But at the end of the day, bar nothing, people will just always gank bot because the Marksman scales too well. So we've ended up, final thoughts here, if I can try to explain this the best, okay? If I can try to explain this the best I can. The problem right now is that the Marksman is the most important and most overpowered class in the game, but they don't get to decide if they get fed. Yes, a better Marksman will overall carry. They will get some games where their skill can be expressed, yes. But more so, in my opinion, more so than any other role, maybe than top. I mean, it kind of comes down to a top and bot. In an ironic twist, top and bot laners should probably be united because we're kind of the working class at this point. We're the lower class dungs, top and bot laners. Top laners don't get to win their own lane, jungle wins it. Bot laners don't get to win their own lane, jungle wins it. Realistically, we should put aside our differences for a little bit and work together to fuck the jungler. Because until the jungler gets fucked over, both our lanes aren't going to do anything, right? So that's just, you know, my opinion on that there. But yeah, so realistically, the Marksman is the most overpowered class, but he doesn't get to choose his own destiny. Again, yes, like I'm not even a Marksman here, so don't think this is like some gigacopium. Like I'm stuck in plat because I can never win my own lane. Like yes, obviously you will get games where your skill can impact it, right? Like you will get games like that, and Marksman can climb. We've seen that over and over again, but we've also seen over and over again that the most underrepresented classes at the higher ranks tend to be top lane and bot lane. Bot lane tends to have difficulties due to their shit, and top lane tends to have difficulties due to their shit. I think the biggest advantage top lane has over bot lane is every so often top lane is just given giga broken champions. Like right now we have Jax, and everyone is just spamming the shit out of Jax and climbing on Jax. So, you know, top lane can kind of just get giga broken champions and climb on that. Bot lane tends to have like again, the problem is because like if I was to draw this in paint, right? Like if this is like your power over time, right? Let me do this. Like this is your power over time. Top laners tend to go like that, and bot laners tend to go more like that. Where top laners, or sorry, like marksmen start the lane much stronger. Because they have a ranged auto attack. That alone is like crazy powerful, right? Like level 1, you only have one ability and it's not going to do much damage, so ranged auto attack tends to be the strongest. Bruisers very quickly ramp up by level 3, 4, 5, and then definitely by 6. Bruisers will typically beat pretty much everyone 1v1. Marksmen, on the other hand, they start to lose power as abilities get more relevancy. Until they can get some items, abilities will gain relevancy. They'll become more relevant. So marksmen will be less and less powerful until they can pick up some items to make having a ranged auto attack mean more. This makes sense, okay? So basically, abilities are more important level 3 to like probably 12. Level like 3 to 12 abilities are more important than like 2 items auto attacks start to be more important again. We can see this even with auto attack bruisers like Aurelia and Jax and company, where like Jax can typically be beaten down up until he completes one item. A lot of champions, like early in the game, Jax can like lethal tempo beat people down, but once ability starts scaling and being more useful, you can beat Jax down. But then like once he gets like 2 items, no one can really deal with Jax, right? Same way with Marksman. Once a Marksman gets her 2nd item, once Caitlyn gets her Infinity Edge, she's just gonna like 2-shot everyone, right? So yeah, so that's just so ending conclusion here. I've now rambled here for a bit, okay? Ending conclusion here. Riot needs to nerf Marksman, in my opinion, but I think what they need to do is give them stronger, less scaling abilities, something like that. Like kind of how Xayah is, where she's definitely got a powerful ability, but like Xayah will be outscaled by, for example, like a Kog'Maw, right? Like good example of AD carries are probably Caitlyn, Xayah, kind of Lucian, but Lucian is a little stat checky. Champions that like have actual gameplay and aren't just like ranged auto attacker. What do? I run up and I blast people with my pew-pews, right? Like at the end of the day, League of Legends is an ability-based game, and Marksmen are kind of an archaic remnant of the past. And because of that, Riot needs to increasingly accommodate them with more and more broken shit. But the problem is, by accommodating them more and more with more and more broken shit, the problem is they tend to stat check stuff really hard, to the point where, yes, as we're seeing here, jungle influence is too high because jungle wins bot lane, who then wins the game. I hope I made myself clear throughout this entire thing. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you all for being here. Support me on Patreon. Support me by joining as a YouTube member. Leave a like, leave a comment, leave your thoughts. Thank you everybody. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Goodbye everyone.